everybody. Sarah, give me the go and I'll get moving.
You're good to go.
All right, good morning. Welcome back from our summer hiatus. I'm Nancy McSherry Jensen. I know some of you, not all of you, so welcome. Welcome back to folks we know and welcome to those who are new. This is our weekly Hangout Habits call. This week, we are delighted to tell you that we have a staffing and recruiting expert who's going to talk about finding the right fit. So Suzanne O'Brien from Blake Rian Consulting will be talking about her perspectives in staffing, and she's got a rich background in this. But first, let's just talk about Hangout Habits for a second. We hold these every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We're live and we're online. So some of you are watching here in our Zoom meeting. We're also broadcasting. We focus on relevant job search strategies and topics, and our goal is to give you actionable tips so that you get into the weekly habit of your job search, especially right now. There's so many competing demands and distractions. It's super important to keep on a schedule and to keep on a timeline. At the end of the call, we do have breakout rooms so that you can engage in some networking. And we also have an accountability program. So I want to talk to you about that. We piloted an accountability program this summer. It was very successful. For those of you who participated in that, thank you so much for all your feedback. It was so great. We're running it again. Starting October 6th. So that it will be here before we know it. I can't believe we're at the end of September. We are running another 6-week accountability program. It runs weekly. We have it live as well as video on demand. So if you can't make the live meeting, you can watch afterwards. We put you in small accountability groups with moderated topics. It gives you an opportunity to do a real-time progress check-in. So if you are looking to move your career goals forward, get involved in the accountability program. We had a lot of great feedback from this summer. Next week, I can't believe this is coming up. We have a LinkedIn and personal branding workshop that we're running with Blueprint. So we have a wonderful partner in Blueprint Technologies, and they are going to talk about how to target your LinkedIn profile to match and attract roles you want. And I suspect Suzanne's going to talk a little bit about that. And they're going to talk a little bit about how to enhance and align your brand so it best showcases your skills and expertise. So if this is something that you are interested in, you can register for the workshop now. I can't believe we're here. It seems like the summer went on and on and on, and then all of a sudden, pow, we're in September.
And if you check our Facebook group, there is a promo code. So if you aren't a member of the Swingship Community Facebook group, you can join that, and there's a $15 off promo code in there. So be sure to do that.
Right. So that, check that out. Coming up next week, we welcome back Rebecca Krause, who's a content strategist at Expedia and a career coach. She's going to talk about leveraging social media for networking. And then I am delighted to tell you we've been able to get Yasmin Ali, who's the founder and CEO at Skillspire. She's going to talk about pivoting and returning to a technical role after a career break. Yasmin is just so compelling. She took a very substantial career break, came back to found the company Skillspire. She's been in Nancy Pelosi's office and Susan Delbenny's office in Washington, D.C. to talk about her diversity and equity and inclusion efforts. And she is a wonderful human being. I'm so excited that we have her coming up to talk. So, and we've got lots of other great speakers. We just wanted to get those two on the radar. But today, let's talk about you, Suzanne. I am delighted to have Suzanne O'Brien, who's the CEO at Blake Rian Consulting. She is a staffing industry veteran. She has worked at pretty much every big name company you can think of, including Randstad, Robert Half, and locally here at Simplicity and Kforce. She started her own business with the philosophy that she wants to build a long-term relationship, both with her clients and with the people that she's putting into these staffing roles. And they have offices in Newport Beach, California, I think Austin, Texas, as well as here locally in the Puget Sound. When Suzanne and I talked, it was a couple of months ago, it was really fascinating to hear her talk about how, look, this isn't a transactional relationship. When you are looking for a job, and particularly if you're looking to take maybe a staffing or a consulting job as a way to try a new role or to lily pad back into the workplace, you're really looking to build a relationship. So at this point, because the goal is to get the right fit. So at this point, I'm gonna step out of my slides and pull up Suzanne's, and I'm gonna mute, and Suzanne's gonna talk. So Suzanne, thank you again for joining us, and I'll get your slides up in just a second.
Thank you so much for having me, everybody, and thank you for joining. I'm excited to be here and be able to hopefully share some really good and helpful tips and advice on really landing that right fit in the dream job that you're trying to get into.
All right, and Suzanne, I'm driving slides. So Suzanne, you tell me when to move forward.
Okay. Can you
see?
see?
It doesn't look like hers aren't up yet.
Oh, they're not. Let's see. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh, let me try it again. I stopped sharing. Now I'm going to share my screen. There we go. How's that?
Perfect. So my name is Suzanne O'Brien. I am the founder CEO of Blake Rian Consulting. And I have basically just put a little bit of a presentation together to go over some really key talking points that we coach our candidates in when we're working with them. But please feel free, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and Sarah and Nancy can help moderate that piece of it. Go ahead and move forward, Nancy, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to start with a little bit about who I am and how I got into this industry and how I started my own business. So I have been in the staffing industry for over 14 years now. When I started my business in 2018, I'd been in the industry for a little over 13. So I guess I'm coming up on 15 now. It goes by very quickly. But I used to run very successful sales and recruiting teams for Ronstadt, the direct hire recruiting and sales team for Robert Half. I've done healthcare and ran all of Washington for supplemental healthcare. So I've definitely been in the industry and kind of seen it all. I really started realizing that the way I learned staffing and recruiting was very much relationship. It was very relationship driven. You build a great relationship with your client, but also your candidate. And I noticed that in the big corporate world, because they are so big, it became very much more transactional, and we really lost that touch. So I decided this is not how I want to continue doing business. And literally in my living room at 7:30 one night, I decided I'm going to start my own company. So I built my website. I named it after my daughter. Her name is Blake Rian, because I was pregnant with her at the time. And then we had our son was about 15 months old. And so what I really did is took everything that I learned and believed in and built the vision of my business, which was it's really about long-lasting relationships. So our goal is to really become a partner with our clients and our candidates. And any verbiage you ever see me use on social media or when I'm talking to people, I always use the word partner, because that's what we are. We want to be your partner and help you long-term. It's really important to me that we advocate for our candidates. You know, I'm a firm believer that a resume is just a blueprint of someone's experience. It doesn't really tell someone's whole story. And so we really want to get to know the candidates that we work with and share and advocate for them and talk to clients about how they can join their company and become a really great, valuable asset. During my business journey here, I actually joined the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. So I am a certified diversity supplier. And during that, I was approached by a publishing company and participated in a book, Women in Business Leading the Way. So that's just a little bit about myself. And if you want to go ahead and move to the next slide, Nancy. So I kind of wanted to just go over a couple of things with everybody. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to jump in the chat. But, you know, when we talk to candidates, one of the first things they ask is about their resume. And it's one of the first things we look at as well. So what is a resume? So again, you know, a resume, it's just a blueprint. It's an outline of what you've done in the last 10 years typically. And everybody has a different way of formatting. Every recruiter you talk to will tell you a different way of writing in it, of formatting it, what to put on it, what to take off of it. Hiring managers, especially if you're working with the corporate recruiting teams for a hiring manager, they're looking for just those keywords in that job search because they're looking through hundreds of resumes a day. So what I like to tell our candidates is when you're looking at your resume, what do you want out of your next position? Always ask yourself that. What's important to you? And those are things that you really want to highlight and you want to put into your resume. There are different ways that you can word things. If you've had a gap in your employment, there's different ways that you can word that. There are transferable skill sets that you can put in there for what you've been doing during your gap. There's a lot of ways to really catch their eye. I also like to tell candidates, mirror your resume to the job description that they're posting and that you're interested in. So for example, if you have a specific job you're trying to apply for and you see there's specific keywords and you have that experience, make sure you're putting that on your resume. Now, you never want to put anything on there that's not true, but there are ways that you can reword some things to maybe catch a recruiter's eye or catch the hiring manager's eye so that they want to dig in a little bit deeper and ask you some more questions around it. And we always tell people, you know, you don't want to put too much in your resume. You don't want to send somebody a 5-page resume. I typically tell our candidates, keep it to about 2 pages. If it has to be longer than that, then make sure that you're really putting in those really top priority bullet points in each role so that it's not a lot of fluff. It's just direct. These are the actionable items that I've done. Here are my results. And then you can kind of cut it down a little bit. You can move to the next slide. So what is important to me? That's the number one thing I always tell candidates you need to ask yourself. You know, you spend 1/3 of your life at work, so why would you want to work somewhere that you're not happy? You want to go to work and be excited and, you know, like your team and love what you're working on. Now, every day is not like that, obviously, but for the most part and the majority of your time, you should feel like you are very happy and fulfilled and you feel valued, you feel appreciated, and it's a great place for you to be. So what I like to tell people is when you're thinking about this, think about all the skills that you have. Sit down and really think, you know, is work-life balance important to me? Or is it financials are more important to me? Is it benefit packages? Is it being able to have unlimited PTO? I mean, there's so many different areas of life that people find important, and you really want to try to work that into a position that you're going to be in long term. And so there are ways that you can go ahead and say, okay, so here's what I'm looking for, and this is what this job entails. So let's figure out how I can relay that to the client or the hiring manager, if you will, and see how I can also walk away with feeling like this is the most amazing opportunity. I'm getting everything that I'm looking for, at least 8 out of 10. I always tell clients and candidates, if you can get 8 out of 10 must-haves in your next role or your next employee, you are winning way beyond you've ever believed. So I always say, you know, you really need to figure out what you want. That's going to be the most important thing, because if you don't do that and you start a position and you're not happy going into it, you're not going to be happy 6 months down the road, a year down the road, and you're going to be back in the same spot trying to find a different position that you are happy with. There are a lot of areas where some people will say, oh, well, you know, this is a skill set they're asking for, or this is an area where, you know, I've done something similar but not that specific thing, so maybe I shouldn't apply. And I always tell candidates, do a tutorial. If it's, let's say it's a software that you're not familiar with, go onto YouTube. There's tutorials for everything these days. Do a couple tutorials and then put on your resume under your skill set that you've done tutorials on this specific software. That way they at least know you're trying to make the effort and you're trying to learn, and you want to be able to understand what they're doing internally. And that is, I mean, you don't realize how far that goes with a hiring manager. I just had someone the other day who they were looking for a payroll manager, and they were looking for a specific software and payroll system, and the candidate didn't have it, but she hopped on YouTube. She took 3 tutorials. We told that to the manager, and they hired her yesterday. So it really goes a long way in understanding, how to make yourself valuable in the way that they understand you're willing to learn and you're excited, you're taking initiative, and you really want to jump in. Another piece of that is don't negotiate your must-haves. You always have to have must-haves, and that's going to go back to what's important to you. For me specifically, when I was in corporate America, once I had children, my must-have was work-life balance. I mean, prior to that, I was working, probably 60 hours a week. I worked on weekends. I don't think there was one vacation in that 13 years that I was not working or checking email or, doing candidate interviews, placing people. So you have to have those must-haves and don't negotiate with them, because again, that's going to go back to what's important to you and if you're going to be happy in that position. Another thing I always like to tell candidates is take a chance. Hey, there's an interesting statistic, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard it, that women don't typically apply for positions unless they feel like they meet 110% of the expectations. And there really is no reason for that, because there's so many women out there who have so many great skills, and there's no reason you shouldn't take a chance and just apply. If you're worried about applying, go to, work with somebody who has a business like myself, and it's an easier way to get in, because then we can tell your story and we can explain, why you'd be a good fit, the benefits, etc. But take that chance. Don't let missing, 1 or 2 things, 5 things that maybe you don't have experience in, don't miss out on that opportunity. And then be patient. You have to be patient, because it's a long process sometimes when you're going through this, and different amount of interview cycles, and just be patient and see, just hold on and be confident in yourself, and it'll definitely work out.
Suzanne, I have a question to follow up on that. Some of the women that are on the call here, and many women are taking pauses right now in their careers, and some are short, some are a little bit longer. Can you talk about how to position yourself, particularly with a company like yours? How do you talk about that? I think that there's a lot of concern about it. We believe that there shouldn't be, and that there's ways to really crisply hit it and move on. But can you talk about that from your perspective?
Absolutely. So I think that, anytime that I work with a candidate or my team works with a candidate that has a gap, the most important thing is figuring out what was that gap, right? So we always ask, we've noticed that there's a gap in employment. Can you tell me, obviously to the comfortability level of the candidate, what that was? And then what we like to do is we like to reposition and adjust the verbiage on how we explain that to a client. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a hiatus, whether it's travel, it's staying home with your kids, it's, maybe you're just you took some time off to figure out what industry you wanted to really be in long term. And so the best way to do that, honestly, is just to really take your gap and figure out what you were doing during that time. And there's a way that you can actually put those transferable skills based on whatever you were doing on your resume to show you were still, that gap, even though it was time apart, you're still keeping up with your skill set, you're still valuable. There's a way that you can still jump right back in. And that's a good, good thing too with some of the tutorials that people do. It's a way of showing, hey, I've been out of the industry for a year, but I really wanted to freshen up my skills. So I went and did a YouTube tutorial on whatever the software or whatever the system that they're looking for on the job description.
Hey, Suzanne, I have a question. So you talked about making sure you know what you're worth. right? As you're going into negotiations and you're talking with companies, what are your recommendations on maybe places to go, or how do you research that? How do you find that out? Kind of get that, whatever it is, that number or whatever it may be. Where do you go to find that?
I think there's data you can look up. You can look up data. We a lot of times will use pay scale to kind of see what, when we go into a different market, we'll use pay scale and say, okay, so what does this market typically pay on average for this type of position with this amount of years of experience and skill set? I think that when it comes to compensation and kind of knowing what you're worth or what you're looking for, I always tell candidates, look at the big picture. It's not always just about salary. Look at benefits, look at overall compensation as far as, are there bonus opportunities available? What does the PTO look like? One thing that I honestly negotiate pretty often for is additional PTO during direct hire. So if, for example, what you're looking for, they're not paying exactly that amount, but you can get additional PTO, each year, then that's a win. Look at the benefit package. So you also have to kind of figure out what is important to you in that piece of it. There have been candidates that I've worked with that have taken positions and actually have taken a cut in pay to move to a new company because of the culture, because of what they were working on, and knowing the long term, it was going to be a really good fit for them. So it's just all comes down to what is really important to you in your life and looking forward.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Oh, I see one came in.
Yep.
Let's see.
Monica had a question.
Okay. So
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So absolutely, Monica. So Monica's question is basically, I imagine the same reasoning of taking classes, tutorials, volunteering, pro bono work would apply in explaining at least the last 6 months of the coronavirus gap. Absolutely. And I think right now, everybody, I would be shocked if there was anybody in the world who doesn't understand that the economy has basically kind of shut down in a lot of areas, and there is that gap. So I would think that if something like this in a pandemic, there'd really be no reason to say other than this is why this happened. But absolutely, for the classes, the tutorials, volunteering is fantastic. Doing pro bono work, all of that stuff is really great, and it's along the same lines as doing tutorials. I would definitely recommend it.
Great.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. A lot, particularly, and it's sort of jumping off of what Monica said. I think that there's a lot of people. You mentioned pro bono work. Could you address a little bit about how to characterize that, particularly if most women, when they are out, or most women, period, do some sort of community or pro bono work. And sometimes it has huge monetary value. Can you talk a little bit about how to characterize that in a way that you are going to want to hear, so that your corporate clients are going to want to hear?
Absolutely. For me, I love seeing things on people's resumes when they do any type of volunteering, or, one great thing that you can put on there too is, for example, when we worked with a couple of moms who they had kids and they stayed home, but they volunteered in the PTA, and they were a class mom. So they were going in and coordinating meeting events and coordinating school projects. And that's all stuff that we put on their resumes is, they were for the last 5, 6, 7 years, they were at home, but here are all of the different tasks that they were doing at their children's school, or some of them do, volunteer at the community centers, or some of them volunteer at their church. It just really depends on, what they choose. But we always outline that, because those are transferable skills getting back into the workforce. You're still, I don't know anybody who thinks that wrangling, first graders or kindergartners or even teenagers is an easy task. So, scheduling those school events and coordinating everything and making sure everything goes off without a hitch, that's a huge transferable skill, because that means that you can get back into the workforce and you can do the same thing with adults, which is typically a little bit easier. So I always tell people, highlight that on your resume. And if you ever have questions on how to highlight it or how you can use specific verbiage, definitely, we're always here to help, or you can always ask a recruiter and see what they say. But it's definitely a valuable thing to have on there. Now, I think oh no.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Ahead.
I would say, think that, there are some people who kind of shy away from that when they're doing their resume or they're getting back into the workforce. And I just want to tell you, don't shy away. It's so valuable for people to see that and to understand. Again, it's all about the transferable skills when you're getting back into the workforce. You want to make sure that people realize, this is what you've been doing and this is what you're going to bring to their teams.
Right. And I think quantifying those activities, both in terms of number of volunteers, amounts of budget, reach
Absolutely.
with local communities, right? So I think what we've heard, I mean, you and I talked a little bit about this, but what we hear from lots of other folks is, we want to know the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's when I help candidates with their resume and format their resume, depending on what industry you're in, I always tell them, put specific percentages for specific budgetary numbers, specific number of people you've managed. I mean, honestly, if you've been staying home and you managed the third grade dance, and I mean, you're managing, probably 40, 50, 60 children, plus the adults, plus, the event planning, plus all the vendors. I mean, all of that you want to put on there and really quantify and be specific around what that looks like.
Right. I have to say, and if other people have questions, jump in, but I had a question specifically to your consulting practice. I know, I'm curious.
We could ask questions all day. I have so many after you're done.
Really? So you're particularly in right now, technology is hot. You hire for a variety of roles, though, don't you? Hire for healthcare and admin and finance. Can you talk a little bit specifically about your company, what kind of industries and roles that you staff, just in case people on here are interested in talking with you?
Absolutely. So we, one of the things when I started my business, one of the first questions people started asking me was, well, what are you going to specialize in? And I said, everybody says they're a specialist. And personally, unless you've really sat in that seat and done that job, you're not technically a specialist. I mean, yes, you know the market and you understand. So I said, I don't really want to just specialize. I want to be the consulting firm that my clients can come to and say, hey, I need an admin, or I need a tech person, or I need a janitor, and really my goal is to work within what my clients need versus saying, hey, this is all we do. You need to fit into our model. And that's just how it is. So we fill anything, basically. We fill IT roles. We fill operations HR specialist roles. So anything from an HR generalist up to VP of operations, VP of HR. We do all levels of finance, all levels of creative and marketing. And then we also have a specific hospitality division, and that division works with a few large corporate hospitality businesses. So they're the companies that sit on the big campuses that have internal, essentially, catering teams that manage all their lunch programs and all their events, etc. And then we also have a separate healthcare division. And so in that division, we've staffed anything from CANs and LPNs, RNs, up to director level roles. And then we also do home health staffing. And all of the healthcare side is direct hire. The other side of our business, we do contract to hire, direct hire, and then we have what we call a managed service. And so we really want to, like I said, be that one-stop shop for our clients' needs and our candidates' needs versus saying this is all that we do. And that, that really leads into the motto that I started with my business. And you'll see it on everything, is we firmly believe it's not about putting someone in the seat, it's about finding the right fit. So for
Right.
us, it's really taking that time to understand on both sides what's going to be best for everybody and how to fill that gap. You know, I had a really amazing text from a candidate the other day, and I placed her 3 years ago. And she said, "Hey, Suzanne, I'm coming on my 3rd year anniversary here, and I just wanted to, you know, say something on LinkedIn to you and a couple other people. Can I tag you?" And I said, "Absolutely." And you know, that is my favorite part of my job, is having candidates who come back to me and they're still where they are and they're happy and they're doing well. And I love to see that. So I still keep in contact with a lot of I had another one actually 3 months ago text me and say, "Hey, I just want to, you know, say I hope you're," and I haven't talked to this person in probably 5 years, but he said, "Hey, do you remember me?" I said, "Absolutely. You know, how are you?" And he said, "I'm still at the company you placed me at. Everything's going great, and I just wanted to check in and see, you know, how you and your family are during this tough time." And so, you know, we really take that approach of this is a long-term relationship, and we want to ensure that you're happy, you are doing, you know, what you love, and we can help facilitate that in any means possible.
Okay. And so I think we are at time. Like we
Wait,
try to keep these calls.
Wait,
Did you have another one?
Yes, I actually have two. The first, Suzanne, I just think it's really important. So one part of the job search process that a lot of our community and everyone struggles with is when you're working with recruiters at companies, you're not getting feedback, you're not hearing back on anything. It's hard, it's demeaning, it's confusing. Can you talk a little bit more about how you work with your candidates? Because we as a company are big fans of consulting companies for women in career transitions. There's so many great reasons for them to go this route. And one, I think, is that you guys are advocates for them. You give them tips to help get through the interviews, things of that nature. So can you kind of walk through how you guys, specifically at Blake Rian, work with your candidates during the job search?
Absolutely. And you know, it's really unfortunate that happens so often. And I see it all the time on LinkedIn. And it's interesting, LinkedIn has kind of become a platform where people have been calling out companies who specifically do it, which I don't think is the best approach, but I do understand the frustration, and it's unfortunate. And I think we honestly take that for granted. You know, I had a candidate reach out the other day who applied for something, and we have an auto reply that says, "Yes, we've received your application. Thank you so much. You know, one of our recruiters will contact you." And they sent me an email and said, "Thank you so much for that. It's just so nice knowing that someone is on the other line." And I talked to my team and I said, you know, I think sometimes we forget that personal touch that we do. Not everybody does. And so it's nice to feel that way. You know, we really ensure that if we get you started in our process, that we're in constant communication with you. If you've done an interview with a client and we haven't heard back, we're updating you at least once a week to say, "Hey, still waiting on feedback. Just want to let you know," so that you don't feel like you're kind of left out in the cold. And then when a client decides not to move forward, we also have that conversation. And those are always the tough conversations, but it's very important that we get back to you and let you know, "Hey, we've gone through this cycle with you. Unfortunately, it's a different candidate they move forward with, but let's start moving on into your next role, and what can we help you find next?" And I think that is something that, you know, it can be very defeating when you're just applying to jobs and you never hear anything, or you just get that email 4 months later saying we've moved forward with another candidate. So we really, really try to ensure that we're in contact with you all the time. You know, that's really important to me in all aspects. I mean, I even sit on my LinkedIn, and it was my birthday Monday, and I think I had 1,000 happy birthdays, and I personally sat there and wrote every single person back because I just think that's so important. And I think it's extremely important on the candidate side as well.
Awesome. We like to hear that there's that out there still, and people are still striving for that on the recruiting side. Okay, one more question, and then we'll put people in breakout rooms, or people can head out with their day. This is very tactical. So there's a new feature on LinkedIn where you have the circle, say, "open to work" on your profile picture, that badge that you can put on there. What are your thoughts, you and your team as recruiters? Do you like that? Do you not? Like, what is that internal bias? Like, what What's your thoughts around that? I'm asking all recruiters this because I'm curious. So.
No, honestly, I love it. I actually, if you're in that group, I post in that group, and I will go in there and I will do one post of every single position we have open so that everybody in there can see in case it matches their skill set or it's what they're looking for. I think it's great. Honestly, I wish there was a way that you could search on LinkedIn and find just those people. Other than finding the group and having to individually go through them, because I think it's a great tool and it's a great way for us to know, especially for contract roles, we know that you're available right now versus people who are only looking for direct hire or passive candidates who we, try to find from other companies or competitors of our clients. But I think it's a really great tool. And like I said, if you see any of our posts in there, we list every single thing we're looking for. So reach out to us if they match your skill set.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nancy, I'll let you move forward now.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Well, you guys know me. I always want to keep it moving forward. Suzanne, thank you so much. I mean, I found this to be so incredibly valuable. Are you okay with people connecting with you on LinkedIn? What's the best way to be in touch?
Absolutely. If you scroll forward, I think if you go, the next one is Q&A, and then I think the last one has all of our contacts.
There we are. Yep.
So if you'd like to reach out to us, please do. The recruiting at BlakeRyanConsulting.com email actually goes to every single person on my team, including myself. So I know that people are getting contacted right away. If I will tell you, if I don't see somebody contacted within 2 hours, I'm pinging my team. You can also go to our website. We have a list of what we have open currently, and you can apply directly there. And then please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and our company page. Feel free to follow that on LinkedIn. We post a lot of stuff around our jobs and what we're up to as well.
Great. Well,
thank you so much, everybody, for coming and listening to me.
Oh, no, this was fantastic. And we'll have it